guys, Jay here, welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 182. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about painting, modeling, and wargame experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I got quite a bit of painting done. I got to read the Agents of the Imperium, the points costs, and what have they done to my boys. And Games Workshop has a made to order that has me a little bit interested. But first, did you know about the greatest website of all time? eonsbattle.com. eonsbattlecom is the place to find our merch, like the Eons of Battle dice, and I can say that these have been rolling hot for me lately. I won my last 2 games of Moonstone. Now, some people would say, maybe like my opponents, that the first game was a demo game and the second game was a draw, but I think we all know who really won. And our website is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Every single month, members will get 1 credit that they can use towards our newest terrain set that we've just made, or any previous pack we have ever made. For the month of September, we here at Eons of Battle are proud to announce the Whimsical Cottages. Fantasy buildings perfect for any game with a ye olde flair. Move your models around the quaint homes, the roomy houses, or set up shop in the tavern. With this terrain, you can make an entire town complete with pumpkins, giant mushrooms, and trees to really fill out a game board. I've been schlepping this terrain to the local game store to play some Moonstone, and it has been a lot of fun. Now, Games Workshop is bringing Slaves to Darkness back for Warhammer the Old World, and they're doing a range of made-to-order so that you can get some of the oldest, crunchiest miniatures that Games Workshop has ever made. I don't think many of these models have a huge draw, maybe some nostalgia draw, but one of them that caught my eye is the old Chaos Spawn. Chaos Spawn are kind of unique. They've always been like a borderline good unit, and I'd actually have an old Warhammer Beast of Chaos. For my Nurgle army, it's a old, crunchy little slug dog. It's the cutest little thing. And I kind of feel like this guy would look really good next to him. Just 2 old metal, just chunky miniatures. And he's really cool looking. He definitely is inspired by like the Thing from the movie The Thing. I love his little proboscis with just a bunch of shark teeth inside. His little stabby arms, his punchy arm, his grabby arm, his tiny little feetsies. Like that looks like a Chaos Spawn, just a booger. Just a booger that's gonna run across the battlefield and cause some problems. Also, Chaos Spawn are kind of interesting. I don't remember if they get any benefits from the Mark of Nurgle. I assume they don't. I think they have a 5-up Feel No Pain, and they get to heal. So there's definitely something to them. I've never seen any in any competitive lists, but my Death Guard army is far from competitive, so maybe he's the perfect choice. But speaking of things that are actually competitive, I have been painting like a fiend trying to get my Black Templar tournament list up and running, and I woke up this Saturday, and the second I rolled out of bed, I'm like, I want to paint some scouts today. And I did. Technically, I painted Primaris Neophytes, or I guess Space Marine Neophytes for the Primaris Crusader squad, because Black Templar don't follow the standard Codex Astartes. They have Neophyte, Acolyte, and Sword Brethren, and then I guess you have Castellan, and then you have Marshal, and then you've got Grand Marshal? Or what is Helbrecht? Grand Marshal is the High Marshal of the Black Templar, which I painted him too, but I don't think he's gonna be in my list. But I did paint those scouts. Oh, I had so much fun. Scouts are probably the most boring Space Marine units. They're not full Space Marines. They're kind of just like little football bros who run around the board. They have weapons, although if you're a Black Templar player, they get standard like Primaris chainswords, which are strength 4, 5 attacks, AP -1. Oh, they are glorious. And hilariously, in a Crusader squad, because it's a mixed loadout squad, so you've got scouts with 4-up save, Space Marines with a 3-up save, you actually kill off the Space Marines before you kill off the scouts, so that you're making 3-up armor saves. And so you actually kill full Battle Brothers instead of killing the Neophyte scouts first. And I've actually done a little bit of kit bashing on these guys. I gave 2 of them the shotguns. And why did I give them the shotguns? Because they're the coolest looking thing. The shotguns are so awesome. And in early 10th edition, you would actually take 1 shotgun in your Crusader squad because it is an assault weapon. And so before we actually had real rules for how to do an action to do secondary mission objectives, you actually took an assault weapon so that you could advance and still have the opportunity to shoot your gun so that you could not shoot your gun and do the action. And so technically, in a way, this is like early 10th edition WYSIWYG, but for right now, I have them holding shotguns just because I absolutely love the look of the shotguns. And they are WYSIWYG because the chainswords are on their backs. And so I love how these scouts are turning out. And I think I'm gonna paint some more because looking at my list is definitely struggling with secondary objectives. And so I think a unit of 5 scouts with the uppy downy and maybe even the lieutenant with combi weapon would be a good choice for my army, just so that while my crusader squads or my sword brethren squads are just wrecking the board, I can actually have some guys running around and doing the things that need to get done. But I really like these scouts. I spent pretty much the whole day on them. I also got the better part of the crusader squad done too, but really I was focusing on getting these scouts done, and I really like how they turned out. Really, when I woke up, I was like, I want to paint scouts, but really what I wanted to do was paint the checkerboarding on this one guy's shotgun. It just made me happy. I just knew it would be really fun to paint the checkerboard and then to get to see the shotgun with the checkerboard on it. And I was right. It was really fun. And I really like these scouts. I painted every single one. I basically painted my entire Black Templar army up to character standard. And I just love it. Like every now and then I do feel like I get bored of painting Black Templar. I've painted hundreds upon hundreds of Black Templar Space Marines. And every now and then, like, especially after I get done with a bunch of Black Templar units, I do feel a little burnt out. But every time I pick up a new one and I start working on it, it all comes back. And I'm like, I really like painting really good on some Black Templar Space Marines. And I feel like the red that I've done on these guys, very sparingly because they're the neophytes, so they should probably have the least amount of like the cool accent color as possible. I think the red is some of the best red that I've painted. It's a very subtle grade, or not really, it's actually a pretty extreme gradient from a very dark red to a bright red, and then a little bit of like orange chipping and pitting on the weapons. I really like how it turned out. But yeah, I'm really excited. I think I can get all of my Black Templar painted up for the tournament in October, and it is going to be glorious. I'll probably lose every single game, but it won't matter because my Black Templar will be coming. But speaking of things that won't be coming to the tournament, I love a good Agents in the Imperium because I love bringing weird, wacky units. And looking at the Agents Codex, it didn't get me super excited, but then we finally got the points that things are gonna be available at. And the points have me a little bit less excited. Specifically, the Assassin models. I have been loving taking Eversor Assassin at 75 points. He is a lovely little freak with a bunch of abilities that he can pick. He used to be able to pick them once per turn. You could pick either Advance and Charge, Sustained 3 on all of his weapons, or Precision on all of his weapons. So you got to pick one of those 3 benefits to have with him for that turn. Usually I pick the Advance and Charge because I would just turn 1, charge him into something, and like usually wipe out, like a guardsman squad was really good. One time he got to charge Sean's like hero squad, his, what are they called? The Cadian command squad with attached Leontis, and he did pretty good work. He wiped out pretty much everybody except the heavy weapon platform and Leontis. So that was a lot of fun. But he now comes in at the staggering cost of 120 points. And the reason for that is very well deserved, but I don't think it's what I wanted. Now, all of those 3 abilities come baked into his datasheet, making him wildly more powerful, but also wildly more expensive. Where before I could kind of YOLO him across the board and just be happy with whatever he does, now I have to be like, he has to kill a character. He has to make his points back. Otherwise, he is just dead weight in my list at 120 points. So he's a little, it's not as much like, you know, when he was only 75 points, it was completely fine if he got like overwatched or one-shotted or failed his charge, or because it was just silly. It was just like world building. Eversor Assassin charging at something that really doesn't want to get attacked by it. It was no big deal. But now it's like, maybe I use a command point, or maybe I do some shenanigans or give him a transport even just to make sure that he goes off, which just kind of makes him a little bit less fun because that's how I feel with most of my units. So maybe I'll just take my regular units. But speaking of the assassins, I wasn't really doing much with The Vindicar or Vindicare assassin, based on the pronunciation from an audiobook I recently listened to, Kingbreaker. This guy was cheap as chips. I think he was also 85 points. He's the sniper dude who can snipe okay. He had like a 50-50 shot of killing like a low strength toughness 4 character a turn. Now he got some big benefits. He can now break the game by being allowed to target lone operative units, which previously nothing in the game could, but now only he can, that's fine. I think that's fine. But he also got his Kingbreaker round is a little bit better, and his stat line got changed a little bit, or the stat line of his gun got changed a little bit. So now he's got like a 66.6% chance of definitely one-shotting an epic hero or like a named character, but he's 150 points. 150 points for you're probably gonna be able to snipe out the character if you can position him just right. He doesn't have deep strike, but he does have, I think he has scout and infiltrate. Infiltrate is interesting, so you could set him up in a building, but is he gonna be able to pop out? If he pops out, he's not gonna be able to take advantage of the heavy on his weapons. Although I think he automatically hits on 2s. So moving would mean that he hits on 2s. I don't know if heavy even helps him out really that much for his profile. He does get +1 to wound with his Kingbreaker round, which is really interesting. And that's probably what you're going to do with the one time you get to shoot with him, just to try to make absolutely sure that he does the thing. But man, he is risky at 150 points. For 150 points, you can kind of just use what's in your codex to do things. I feel like 150 points is a lot. But speaking of things that probably should have gone up a lot more in points, the Calidus assassin, the assassin that's stapled to so many like really good lists, she got even better. Her weapons are phenomenal. She is actually very likely to be able to kill a character in close combat or even ranged combat because she has precision on all of her weapons. But now her uppy downy ability is way better because at the end of your turn, you can actually have her walk out of combat for free. D6 inches, so you have to roll a 6, 5, or 4. But if you do roll a 6, 5, or 4, they are out of 3-inch range of your opponent, and then they can be picked up off the board and then essentially placed down in your turn anywhere you want more than 9 inches away from an enemy. Really good and powerful. Maybe even worth a command reroll just to make sure that she gets out of dodge. But really good at only 100 points. She basically automatically gets secondary objectives. So I feel like she's still really worthwhile. And if there's no great objective, she probably is still worth just throwing into close combat and seeing what happens. A little risky because she's just a toughness 4, I think 4 up and vulnerable save. She could get Overwatch very easily, but if your opponent's spending the point to Overwatch, maybe 100 points was worth it, like especially later in the game, stealing that point from him so that he can't spend it on something else that turn. Probably worth it. The assassin that I think nobody cared about, the codexes, the anti-psyker guy, he actually got really interesting. I don't even remember what he did because it was all locked to anti-psyker stuff, and it still a little bit is, but now he pops off against psychers. But he's not at all bad against anything else. He also gets deep strike, and very similar to Space Marine Inceptors, he can deep strike within 3 inches of enemy models, but he's not available to charge. No big deal, he didn't want to charge anyway. But once per turn, or actually at the start of any player's command phase, he can be a psychic bomb. You pick enemy models within 9 inches of him, which is 18 inches, like an 18-inch bubble. If you position him just right, you can probably get a giant chunk of your opponent's army, and then they all have to take a battle shock test at -1 or -2 if that unit is a psyker. So Thousand Suns players will get really messed up. But that could be really interesting because he's got decent movement and it's the start of any player's command phase. So maybe in your turn, you just kind of walk him into the enemy army, although he's a little bit wimpy and susceptible to Overwatch, so maybe you hide him in a building and then you like run him out. But having him just explode and make everybody take battle shock tests at -1, having in your opponent's turn, your opponent could be starting their turn with a good chunk of their army battle shook, that could change their game plan a lot. And for 100 points, I feel like he's kind of worth tinkering with. He's really interesting now, where previously I think he was just completely overlooked. So I actually think he is well changed. Battle shock isn't something that matters a ton in 40k. Usually you can either ignore it, you make your battle shock test, or you can just heroic insane bravery away the failed hazardous. I think you have to pick insane bravery before you roll, but you can still essentially just make sure that it happens. So it's still a little bit, but once again, you're stealing the command point from your opponent. So I think the codexes assassin is actually pretty interesting, and I should get one. I think I might have one. I really need to spend a day going through my pile of shame. And it's not even a pile. I wish it was a pile. It is boxes upon boxes and baggies and just stuff everywhere. I really got to get it under control. But the assassins, they went from like a fun include to you kind of build your battle plan around these assassins. And I think that's going to mean that people take them a lot less. At least it means I'm going to be taking them a lot less. But I don't know. That is what I've been thinking about this week. I hope you guys enjoyed, but I'm done talking, so you can all go back to playing Space Marine 2 now.